Spiritual discernment and judgment. There's a fine line between the two. And when you learn to distinguish between the two, you begin to cultivate a relationship with your inner authority. Spiritual discernment is the process of listening to your intuition and your critical thinking. Combine the two together to really analyze a situation either within your inner world or your external world, to decide if it's something that resonates with you, to decide if you want to maintain a relationship with it or if you want to maintain sacred boundaries with it. If whatever it is that you are observing through the lens of discernment, spiritual discernment, you are looking to see if it's going to serve your highest good. The way you go about doing that is by listening to your nervous system. You want to feel the way your physical body is reacting. Is there expansion or contraction? Is there a feeling of being grounded and more present, or is there anxiousness, anxiety, a deep sensation of kind of checking out or leaving a situation or wanting to escape, right? Flight and fright in the nervous system. When you are in discernment, when you are in spiritual discernment, you are able to listen to these sensations, whether it is contraction or expansion, and maintain sacred boundaries with it. And as you maintain your sacred boundaries with it, you use your analytical mind, your critical thinking, to really observe, this is how my nervous system is feeling, this is how my breath is feeling. Or I remember when I felt this way last time, this was a similar situation. Or when I remember when I picked up this energy, it was connected to an inner conflict within myself that I'm still looking to resolve. The, these are all different ways where we bring in our actual mind from past experiences and combine it with the way our nervous system, our physiology, our more intuitive guttural brain is reacting to the moment. And the combination of the two allows us to make the decision if something is resonating with us or if it's something that we need to maintain deeper boundaries with, those sacred boundaries, and perhaps remove ourselves from that situation or not fully open up to it if we're going to maintain ourselves in that place. Or if it's an inner conflict, if it's something where you're working with more within yourself, inner shadow work, then really going into a place of I'm alchemizing this aspect of myself versus going into judgment and shame. So, what would it feel like if you were in judgment and not in spiritual discernment? So, if you were in judgment, you would go into contraction. There would be critical uh, lens that you are viewing the experience versus using your critical thinking. So, critical lens meaning criticism that is passed down to you from cultural references, from the way you were brought up, the rights and wrongs of society. That comes with judgment. And there's always contraction. There's always walking away from your heart resonance. Your nervous system is always in contraction, and it's very difficult to maintain sacred boundaries when you are in judgment, because what happens is when you go into judgment, your frequency, your vibration begins to match with what it is that you're actually judging. and you become vulnerable to it. And there's not a place within yourself that now can say, oh, this isn't resonating with me, and I'm just going to maintain sacred boundaries and a deep connection to myself as I continue to observe the situation to decide what this is. Judgment and that criticism automatically takes you into contraction and matches your frequency up with that which you don't want. And the first thing that you don't want is the disconnection from your own alignment, from your own heart resonance. One of the most reliable ways to know if you are in spiritual discernment or if you are in judgment is by paying attention to how you are feeling. If you are feeling good, in expansion, in connection to yourself, if you're feeling grounded and present, embodied, those are all signs that you are in spiritual discernment and you have maintained your sacred boundaries. If you find that you have gone into contraction or flight and fright, where you're really not embodied and you're not able to fully be present in the moment or present with yourself, those are all signs that an aspect of you went into judgment and now your sacred boundaries have been compromised and your alignment has been compromised. So the process of listening, to, am I in spiritual discernment? Am I feeling good? Am I grounded? Am I present? Or am I in contraction and have I checked out? Is my alignment in my alignment in fragmentation? That process is the observer self, right? That's when you begin to really practice an aspect of you that is always in observing oneself through more than one lens, through your mind, through your actual physical experience, and through your heart resonance, the way you feel expanded and embodied in your present, and the edge of that presence, the expansion, where your auric field is, where your sacred boundaries are. Or are you like so contracted in that you can barely feel yourself and you feel more what it is that you are in judgment with? In the process of the dance between spiritual discernment and judgment, where one begins to cultivate an observer self or really understand that aspect of oneself, we begin to get in touch, or we begin to hear that intuitive guidance that is channeled through our observer self. And that inner authority begins to cultivate in that process. When we are in the inquiry and are interested to know if something is resonating with us or if something's not in resonance with us, or if we're interested to understand why we are experiencing something in this way and if it's serving our highest good or not, and if we want to react to it, when we're in that process, we are in that inquiry, and that inquiry begins to go into our subconscious, our unconscious, and pull out information to guide us further, to help us navigate the external or the internal plane that we're navigating. And that's where you start to cultivate a relationship with your intuition. Meaning your intuition is always there, but you're not always listening to your intuition because you're so in touch with just being a human and all the things that you've been taught to be a human and pay attention to, but very rarely are we taught to pay attention to our internal climate, how we're feeling, how we're reacting, how we want to choose to react and feel, and how we want to maintain those boundaries, how we want to learn from a situation, And we're asking those questions not from a book, not from someone else, but we're asking those questions from an inner perspective, an inner authority, inner intuition. And that's where your inner authority that comes from your intuitive self begins to cultivate. And the more you are in this practice, and the more you begin to get information and then receive the results from that information that actually feel good and serve your highest good and create a reality that now that makes more sense and serves you in a way that you feel more whole and complete, and you're able to fully take charge of your life, have agency over your life. When you have that proof, then you begin to trust your intuition even further. And then that inner authority within yourself becomes stronger, and your intuitive voice becomes louder. And it's something that you have deeper trust in. So, the process of cultivating a relationship between spiritual discernment, the observer self, and that inner guidance creates the inner authority, that intuition that is now navigating your inner and external planes. So it's so much more than I don't want to be in judgment. It's actually the process of becoming whole and complete, meaning you have access to so many parts of yourself that are beyond the way you were educated to have access to yourself in the human culture that most of us live in. In practice with patients and clients, I've found that people have difficulty alchemizing judgment into spiritual discernment, and especially people that are on a spiritual journey and they already have certain level of awakening and aspiration for alignment with themselves, have completely walked away from any form of discernment, spiritual discernment, and confusing it with judgment. And so then there is no inner authority, and there's always just being good and being nice and being kind and almost like love bombing everything or projecting their light onto something versus having spiritual discernment with what it is that they are interacting with, so they can see the truth of what that interaction is in that moment, based on their awakening, based on their alignment, and based on what serves their highest good in that moment. So when we have difficulty with judgment and when we feel like we are a bad person, if we are able to see things that are maybe not looked at as something that we desire to experience and in someone else or even in within ourselves, that judgment, that contraction creates deep shame within ourselves, and that soul resonance and completely fragments us from our heart resonance. And when judgment happens, what's really important is to recognize that it's judgment and not to judge judgment, but to alchemize judgment into spiritual discernment, to be interested and to now bring forth your sacred boundaries. Call on your breath to relax your nervous system and ask yourself to come back into embodiment and be grounded in the present moment. And then begin to analyze the situation from expansion, from your heart resonance, from your guttural reaction, and also from your critical thinking. This process is incredibly important to cultivate. When somebody does not become comfortable with spiritual discernment. When somebody walks away and contracts from any part of them that has judgment and doesn't learn to transform judgment into spiritual discernment and understand the relationship between what resonates and what doesn't resonate, and what to maintain stronger boundaries with and what to maintain softer boundaries with, then one doesn't allow themselves to truly be present with what is in front of themselves, whether if that is something that's happening in the external world or it's something that's happening in the internal world. Although it doesn't come in our conscious plane, it's still playing out on an unconscious level. And that creates a certain level of chronic stress. Now, chronic stress over time wears down our physical body. It affects our metabolism. It affects our gut barrier. It affects our microbiome. It affects our cognitive health. So what usually generally starts with is there is an underlying chronic stress that begins to just be a new normal that we get used to because it's unconscious, because we're not paying attention to our nervous system. We're not paying attention to our inner guidance and our observer. We're not allowing ourselves to truly feel what is there based on not wanting to see something that might be negative and not wanting to be a bad person per se, based on the cultural upbringings or based on our idea of spirituality and goodness. And that chronic stress now begins to contract our digestive system. It begins to slow down our motility. It begins to break down our stomach's health and our stomach's ability to break down food. And it begins to break down our intestinal barriers. And it's actually really interesting because if you think about it, our sacred boundaries and the boundaries of our intestinal wall often mimic each other. When we are not able to maintain sacred boundaries with the world outside of ourselves, we'll often experience leaky gut, intestinal permeability. Over time, that leaky gut and intestinal permeability begins to create systemic inflammation. And that systemic inflammation and the endotoxins that enter into our bloodstream now begin to enter our brain because they can access the gut brain axis, right, the brain barrier. And that inflammation, systemic inflammation, now enters on the level of the brain, and that's where we start having more cognitive issues like depression, anxiety, more severe things like bipolar disorder or OCD, and different cognitive disorders that are often not explained but given certain medications to just even block further, which then even separates us even more from our inner authority and recognizing what it is that we're here to learn. And it separates us and tears our energetic field and our spiritual alignment even further, and invites lower vibrational bacterial to take over our gut lining. And then it just becomes this vicious circle that now other chronic disease begin to form from that microbiome that has a lower vibration, then even further takes our brain into a lower vibration, and so on and so on and so on. So it's not just our inner authority and our intuition that gets compromised. it's also our physiology, it's our health, it's our well-being, it's the way we show up into our world and how we experience our life force. What happens on a spiritual plane, on an emotional plane, and mental plane always plays out on a physical plane, and vice versa. They're not disconnected. So if it doesn't motivate you enough to practice your spiritual discernment for the sake of cultivating a relationship with your inner authority, perhaps wanting to have a healthy body, a strong metabolism, a healthy mind, a healthy gut, a healthy capacity to respond to stress might be a deeper motivator. There are 5 easy steps you can take every day to cultivate a relationship with your spiritual discernment. First one is identify what doesn't resonate with you anymore. And that could be within yourself. What doesn't resonate in your personality, in your habits, in the way you show up for yourself and other people, or what doesn't resonate with the world outside of you, who doesn't resonate with you, like the friendships that you keep and the entertainment that you consume, the places that you visit. What no longer resonates with you? What leaves you contracted, depleted, disconnected from yourself? Those are all things that are no longer in resonance with you, and you want to maintain sacred boundaries with it. And now, once you have identified what doesn't resonate, then you want to flip the script and now focus on, well, what would my life look like if I had what resonated in my life, right? What feels good in my life that actually already exists, and can I put my focus more there? And what other things do I want to add in my life that are in deep resonance? The process of doing this begins to cultivate your relationship with your observer self and the critical thinking aspect of yourself in relation to resonance and feeling good and paying attention to your nervous system and your emotions and your reactions to things. So these are the first 2 steps to begin to strengthen your spiritual discernment muscle. Once you've established what resonates with you and what feels good in your life, then you have to begin to practice sacred boundaries to protect what resonates so that you don't slip back into living unconsciously and and not setting boundaries with things that are not resonating. You want to prioritize what is in resonance, what feels good, what serves your highest good, what takes you deeper into your mission, your purpose, your expansion, your alignment, your heart resonance. Who you want to invite into your world, what behaviors, what habits you want to bring into your world, how you want to show up in your personality, what aspects of your personality you want to continue to cultivate. You have to set boundaries with things that would take you away from that. And once you've established those sacred boundaries by prioritizing what resonates in your life within your internal and external life, then you want to deepen your capacity to listen, your capacity to listen to your inner guidance, because nothing is going to be fixed. It's a process of refining, and you're going to continue to refine, and that process of refining and listening throughout your day, every day, with the intention of staying in resonance, then you're going to fine tune your capacity to identify and listen to when you are in spiritual discernment and you are receiving guidance, to go further into something that is part of your priority, part of your intentions for your life, or if you are in a place you want to be able to hear the contraction, you want to hear the voice of judgment, be able to discern between the two, so that if you are in judgment, you're able to alchemize it back into discernment, and then you're going to be able to come back and create those sacred boundaries again. And in that process of doing that, now the last part, you begin to really honor your inner authority, your intuitive guidance. Once those 4 steps have been established, now when you have an inner authority really pointing you and saying, this doesn't resonate, this you need to have sacred boundaries with, this we need to alchemize, this we need to change, this isn't serving your highest good, you want to honor, listen, and follow through with it. In that process of doing that, you deepen your relationship with your inner authority. You create a stronger character within oneself. You create deeper integrity in your energetic field with your energy centers, especially your solar plexus. That inner confidence, that inner authority that comes from alignment, that comes from heart resonance, and it's not created by expectations outside of yourself, and it's really true and authentic to your heart's desires, because a deeper listening has been cultivated already. That inner authority now begins to guide you and shed light on your journey of a life that is filled with connection, with purpose, with satisfaction, with one that continually nourishes you, continually nourishes your evolution, the evolution of your consciousness and the expansion of your consciousness and your inner knowing and your intuition, and that expansion that changes eternally your perspective. And so you don't become, you're never fixed. You are eternally changing in the present moment. There is nothing that's ever fixed, because you're always staying present and you're always staying open and interested. The moment you become fixed in any perception and stop being in this beautiful dance, you have stopped growing and evolving, and you are no longer fully living dynamically. And parts of you begin to freeze. And that's where we also begin to age quicker. And disease and disharmony can also seep in when we stop evolving and growing. For the next portion, I'd like to guide you to a small meditation where you're able to just visualize and connect into your heart resonance and just go into a place of listening, and just listening to any aspect of yourself, your intuitive self, that wants to guide you and share with you the next steps that are going to be best for you to cultivate a relationship with your spiritual discernment, or anything else that might come up that is the next best step for you. I want you to fully just open your heart and go into a place of listening and being open to any information that comes in for you. We're going to come into going into your heart energy center. I will also be providing distal Reiki energy to kind of support your energy field and really ground you into a deeper connection to your source self, so that you're able to hear the messages from your intuition guiding you to what is going to be best for you. So just get yourself into a comfortable seated position or laying down position and become aware of your breath and send your breath into your heart energy center. And as you send your breath into your heart energy center, I want you to really feel the visceral sensation of spaciousness that your breath creates. And as you're able to feel the spaciousness, I want you to visualize and imagine divine white, golden light at the level of your heart energy center. And when you're able to visualize your light, I want you to also begin to feel the visceral sensation of your light. Send your breath into your heart energy center, feel the spaciousness. Visualize divine white, golden light, feel the visceral sensation. Feel the expansion at the level of your heart energy center. And as you feel this expansion, feel your light. I want you to ask yourself to connect yourself to the aspect of yourself that is one with the source of all love and all light in all times and in all spaces. And once you put the request in, just allow yourself to feel the difference. It will be subtle, yet potent at the same time. And once you're able to feel your connection, I want you to just ask your guides, your loved ones, your angels to please come in to help you to raise your vibration, raise your frequency to the highest frequency that's going to serve your highest good, so that you can have a deeper connection with your intuitive guidance, with your higher self, with your source self. And from here on, I just want you to stay in the sensation of your heart energy center, the sensation of connection, and be open to receiving this Reiki healing. And as you open your heart even more, and as you are able to feel your heart energy center open even more, begin to let that resonance occupy your entire body. Every single cell, every aspect of your body is filled with this divine love, divine light, spaciousness, expansion. And allow yourself to feel and allow yourself to listen and be open to hearing anything, any messages that may come through that serves your highest good. To deepen your relationship, to deepen your connection to your intuitive guidance throughout your days, throughout your weeks, throughout your months. Transforming any blockages that may be blocking that, or any belief systems, any old contracts or vows from past lives that might be blocking that, preventing you from accessing your guidance, your intuition, deepening that trust. allowing yourself to feel, to open, to hear, to be present. And ask your intuition, ask your inner guidance to show you signs throughout the day. Whether that sign is internal, with the way you feel or a thought, or whether that sign is external, through nature, through sounds, through symbolisms, that it is always with you and it is always guiding you. Ask your intuition to show you what it feels like when you are in resonance with it. Ask your intuition to show you what it feels like when you can trust fully what your intuition is guiding you to. What it feels like when your inner authority is guiding you. And what it feels like when you can fully trust your inner authority and be open to transforming your life in any way necessary to deepen a cultivation with your inner authority. Allow yourself to wiggle your toes, wiggle your fingers, deepen your breath into your lower abdomen. Slowly bring yourself back into the present moment. Bring gratitude and appreciation to your angels and your guides that have been supporting you in this meditation. And perhaps if you receive messages today, maybe you can write them down so you don't forget them. And when you get symbols or feelings or visions from your intuition throughout the day, you can bring it back to some of the messaging that you received in this meditation and start making connections. As always, I'm here. If you have questions about anything, please leave a message below. I'm looking forward to hearing from you and your journey. I hope this has been helpful, and it's my pleasure to share some of this information with you. Until next time, thank you for being here.